hear me? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this event today. This is the last presentation before lunch, so I'll try to make it brief, quick, and kind of entertaining for attendees. So this is the agenda for today, what we're gonna go. We're gonna review quickly the construction industry, strategic issues, examples of performance, lean construction, need for change, and review of BIM standards around the world. So quick start. Farah today morning mentioned how the construction industry in general is performing. It's lacking behind other industries, mainly when it is being compared to manufacturing industry. It's criticized for poor performance, poor productivity per labor comparing to other industries, schedule delays and cost overruns. In fact, statistics show that in UK industry, construction industry, more than 75% of construction projects are delayed or overrun the budget. So that's the majority of construction projects in the UK industry itself. Again, the industry being criticized, it's one of the greatest waste generators, and criticism for quality issues and complaints, of course. And the industry, construction industry, being ranked by United Nations as the second worst working environment in the world. The second worst working environment. The worst working environment, absolutely, it's come to the mining industry, and then comes the construction. So it's not very attractive, as you can see. Of course, all of that definitely will lead to lack of client satisfaction for the overall performance of the construction industry and construction projects. And because of all what's mentioned already, that's make the industry less attractive for new generations. Statistics in UK prove that students admitting civil engineering school reduced by nearly 40% in the last decade, and architectural school reduced by nearly 35% in the recent decade. And that's significant. But the industry itself, it's one of the key players in the global economy and in the gross domestic production for any nation. That's why it couldn't be left just as it is with a miss in practice. Now, this is example of some of the leading big international projects, let's call it that way. The top on the right is the Great Tunnel between UK and France. It's 1 year late, but it's doubled the budget itself. That's the British Library, nearly 5 years, and this project is the new Berlin airport. Right now, it's been more than 8 years, still the delay ongoing. They stopped announcing when the project will be open, and that's in Berlin, in Germany, one of the leading nations in all industries, along with construction. But again, they are facing challenges. So there is a problem on holistic level for the entire construction industry. And that's why there is interference by UK government in 1998, where they assigned Sir Egan to conduct his comprehensive study for investigating lack of performance for construction industry and outlining high-level recommendations for construction improvement. Basically produced his famous report, Rethinking Construction, encouraging and introducing lean construction principle. Lean principle started in 1950, I think, but early implemented in 1970s by Japanese car manufacturing, Toyota mainly. Taking full advantage of IT and other new technologies. Construction is being criticized for its lack of adoption for new solutions and contemporary technology. Until BIM, actually, people been doing things for the same way for years and years and years. And finally, developing, of course, people and culture to facilitate the above. We discussed in the first panel today that one of the biggest challenges, the cultural resistance, the cultural barrier. People lean to stay in the comfort zone, not changing the things they've been doing for years. To summarize all of that, the report encouraging the construction industry to work smarter rather than harder. And of course, that's taking us to building information modeling, which is probably well known for most attendees today, and the, of course, major benefits of BIM. However, one of the key elements to have a successful BIM practice is engaging all parties on the project. All stakeholders must be engaged. Now, I use this usually for other presentations just to make sure the audience paying attention. There's a spelling mistake intentionally being made in this slide. It's effective BIM, the spelling of effective intentionally made spelling mistake just to grab the attention of attendees. So, okay, we discussed that the industry is lacking of poor performance and the challenges are there. The BIM came on board. let's see what's going on around the world. Is the BIM practice now at its best? Is it well implemented? Is it mature enough already to overcome all the challenges we discussed earlier? So let's see what's going on around the world. We start, of course, with UK BIM Standards, the most famous one. There is a public accessible standard, PAS 1192-3, 4, 5, 6. It's talking generally about BIM delivery from CapEx to OpEx, and COBE, information exchanging, with the primary focal of BIM modeling deliverables at each stage. There is no clear definition of who is doing what at which stage and why. So parties' roles and responsibilities, exact definition, is not quite there in the BIM standards in UK. Going to the BIM standards in Norway, it's guidelines for modeling components such as architectural, structural, MEP, HVAC. But again, the process itself, managing the process, who is doing what and when, how, why, it's not clearly outlined in the Norwegian BIM standards. Going to Finland, by the way, Norway and Finland, they are one of the great, actually, adapters and users of BIM, but we are talking about the standards. There's a difference between the industry itself, the companies being self-motivated to develop new solutions and new techniques, but we talk about the standard for the government. In Finland, again, it specifies, mandates BIM modeling requirements with the focus on model components of architectural, HVAC, structural, landscape, etc. However, it's not tackling the process itself. Who is doing what and when, why, how, it's not clearly defined in Finland. BIM Standards in USA, it started National Institute of Building Science as an initiative with Building Smart, and in association with the Association of General Contractors in the United States. And they have the BIM Standard, Volume 3, which is talking about metadata, LOD, IFC, OmniClass, collaboration formats, but primarily focal on the metadata and information of the model itself. It's not clearly also defining who is doing what and when, how and why. And of course, the most famous is the LOD specification, level of development, which is being updated on an annual basis. Building standards in Canada is relatively new compared to other countries. And recently they launched the standards like 2 years ago, and it's basically on 3 volumes. The first one, very high level explanation about BIM, what is the BIM, what's the uses. The second volume, it's about on organizational level, focuses on organization uses within, BIM uses within an organization. And third one, for project context perspective of applying BIM within projects. But unfortunately, it's lacking also of clear definition, who is doing what and when, the roles and responsibilities. So managing the process itself is still not there, it's missing. Moving to Australia and New Zealand, I think they have the same standards. It's defined the project model content, Revit, they have standards for Revit standards. Obviously, Autodesk doing great well there to have an entire standard for their name. And adopting US CAD standards for metadata, OmniClass, and information exchanging. Again, with the primary focal on the model itself, but managing the process, who is doing what, again, is not clearly mentioned there. Finally, reaching to Singapore, I've been a speaker there last year in one conference, and I had been lucky to meet the person who established the committee for BIM standard there. Singapore, one of the most impressive, actually, examples, because when they started BIM, they thought about it a lot before just announcing a memorandum or a requirement or a government standard. And they studied properly. They made a committee from government entities, consultancy, and contractors. So the entire stakeholders of the projects. And jointly, they created the BIM standards, which in my opinion, one of the most practical and realistic BIM standards. In Singapore, actually, all building permits and approvals by government authorities are going through BIM model uploading to the government platform, and they are reviewing through the model itself. They are not reviewing anymore the 2D drawings. And they are probably the only one who have a clear definition of different parties and the stakeholders' roles and responsibilities, starting from employer, architect, contractor, and operator. Very excellent and solid standards, except one thing, they are missing the project management consultants that, let's say, one of the key stakeholders involved in the project is not there in their standards. BIM standards in Europe, recently there is a committee established in Europe to have a unified BIM standards. It's a high-level guidance for BIM practice, which is encouraging that public sector leadership for BIM practice and common strategic frameworks. And it's demonstrating some of the examples for the countries who are members in the European Union about their BIM standards as well. But it's not up to that detailed level yet. I think they are still going to issue a second volume or update the current one. It's just in early stages. And again, it is missing maybe a clear definition of roles and responsibilities of BIM standards or BIM process management within the project life cycle. Finally, BIM standard ISO 19560, parts 1 and 2. This is still under development, but basically it was built on basis of PAS 1192-2 2013 and BS standard 1192 2007. So jointly they've been together. Now the ISO, I think it's out of UK, it's going to different countries first for their consolidation and approval. It is expected to be released, previously announced later this year, but I'm not sure whether it will be there or not. Maybe early next year or later this year, let's hope it will be there. But now it's going through the countries just to get the final confirmation and blessing before it's publicly released. So this is the final slide. We're here learning from other countries in BIM standards and practices and finding maybe the missing points here and there, trying to implement that on the case of a traditional project delivery. This could be one of the proposed options, maybe, describing one vision of ideal BIM practice process management by different stakeholders and parties within the project life cycle. So starting from the pre-design stage, from the owner and the client, it is expected at least to have EIR, employer information requirements. However, if it is not there, project management consultant should step in as early as possible. If the AIR is there, then the project management consultant expected to review, maybe comment on the AIR, update it, revise it. If it is not there, it is expected they will help the client to produce the AIR. However, after the AIR, there must be a project BIM strategy, which is expected to be delivered by project management consultants. And why there should be a project BIM strategy, which is different from EIR. EIR mainly will focus on the client expectation for the final handing over of the project and the taking over. So usually it's led by the operation team or facility management team at early stage of the project. But PMC, they would be the ideal party to define the BIM uses within the project itself during design stage and execution stage. Moving to the next stage of the project, design. It is expected now the PMC, of course, will participate in pre-qualification and selection criteria for qualified designs based on their BIM experience. However, the designer expected at this stage also to start producing their BIM model and delivering as anticipated as per the project guidelines and contract conditions. But PMC also, they have a vital role here because they will manage the process of BIM model development by the design team and make sure it's being developed on time as anticipated, as required by the client as per the contract conditions. And also start early evaluating of the contractor's pre-qualifications at tender stage for the construction stage. So later at construction stage, we have designer, contractor, PMC on board. The contractor, of course, will take over the BIM model from the designer, develop it further, extract the shop drawings, use BIM uses as anticipated for the project strategy and contract condition, like 4D or 5D, reporting, visualization, whatever there. And design team, of course, expected to do the technical reviews of whatever being produced by the contractor. And PMC will be leading the whole process for both designer and contractor, and they will be the interface point between different stakeholders, whether internal or external. Could be government authorities, could be end user, facility management, exhibition, maybe subcontractors. So that's expected to be part of the PMC role to take the lead for that interface with the stakeholders. Finally, reaching the project completion, all stakeholders got on board. The client role is expected to take over the final BIM delivered by operation team, but they will take it over after it's being confirmed by the project management consultants, because project management consultants, they are the client advisor, and they are taking the leadership for management of this project. And that will be happen only after the technical consultant, which is supervision consultant in this case, will be reviewing of the final BIM deliverables by the contractor. And of course, that all happens after the contractor is submitting or delivering his final BIM deliverable. Thank you very much. I tried to make this presentation short because of the lunch break, and thank you for your attention.